Long before the thrones of men were forged, before crowns, banners, or kingdoms, the world was already at war. The first men came from the south with fire and bronze. They cut down forests older than memory. They burned the sacred weirwoods, and with every tree that fell, the children of the forest felt the world dying. They were not warriors. They were keepers, and they were losing. As the first men advanced, the children retreated deeper into the cold places of the world, into caves, shadows, and snow. They whispered to the trees. They begged the old magic for salvation, and, in their fear, they made a decision that would doom everything. They captured a man, not a king, not a hero, just a man of the first men, strong, young, terrified. His hands were bound. His fate was sealed. In the heart of a sacred grove, beneath a bleeding weirwood, the children prepared their final defense. A shard of dragonglass frozen fire was pressed into the man's chest. His scream echoed through the forest. And then, the scream stopped. His eyes turned blue. In that moment, the Night King was born. But he was not yet a monster. He was something worse. He was purpose. The children had not created a weapon to fight men. They had created a force that did not understand mercy, borders, or surrender. The Night King did not age, did not tire, did not forget. He learned. He watched the living fight one another. He studied death, and he discovered his greatest gift he could take. When the Night King killed, the fallen did not remain dead. They rose again silent, obedient, empty. An army that did not eat, did not sleep, did not break. The children had wanted protection. Instead, they had unleashed extinction. Winter deepened. Snow buried the land. And the dead began to walk. Villages vanished. Fires went dark. The first men realized too late that something far worse than invasion was coming. And so, enemies became allies. Men and children stood together for the first time, not for conquest, but survival. This war would be remembered as the Long Night. A generation passed in darkness. The sun became a rumor. Hope became a memory. And at the center of it all, the Night King marched calm, silent, inevitable. He was not cruel. He did not rage. He endured. At last, the living struck back. Through blood and sacrifice, they forced the Night King north beyond the lands of men. They raised a colossal barrier of ice and magic. The wall. It was not built to stop wildlings. It was built to imprison a god of death. The Night King stood before it and waited. Because he did not need haste, he had time. And winter always returns. For thousands of years, the world forgot the Night King. Kings rose and fell. Empires burned. Faiths replaced older faiths. And beyond the wall, the Night King waited. He did not sleep. He did not dream. He remembered. He remembered the moment of his death and rebirth. He remembered the fear of the children who made him. He remembered the promise etched into his frozen heart. End the war of the living. By ending the living, slowly, patiently, he gathered his strength. Wildlings who vanished in storms returned with blue eyes. Animals twisted by cold joined his host. Giants fell and rose again. Each corpse was a victory. Each death a step closer. The wall still stood. Magic still held. Until men, as they always do, helped destroy themselves. Dragons returned to the world, creatures of fire long thought extinct, and with them came arrogance. When dragon fire met ice, the wall fell. The Night King crossed into the world once more, not as a legend, but as a certainty. Castles collapsed without battle. Armies broke without resistance. Because how do you defeat an enemy who welcomes death? At Winterfell, the heart of the North, the living made their final stand. Fire burned. Steel rang. Heroes charged. And it was not enough. The Night King walked through flame untouched. He raised his arms, and the dead rose around him. Every sacrifice became his weapon. Every fallen soldier joined his ranks. This was his triumph. Until it wasn't. In the godswood beneath the same weirwood that had witnessed his birth, the cycle closed. A blade of Valyrian steel pierced his heart. The magic shattered. The army fell. And the Night King ended. But the world did not cheer. Because victory did not erase the truth. He had not come for power. He had not come for revenge. He had come because the living never stop fighting. The Night King was not the enemy. He was the consequence. A reminder, carved in ice and death, that some wars leave scars so deep they rise again. And one day, they may return. The moment the Night King fell, the world did not erupt in celebration. There was no roar of victory, no songs, no sense of triumph. There was only silence. Across the battlefield of Winterfell, bodies collapsed not in battle, but in surrender to gravity. The dead did not scream as they fell. They simply stopped. Thousands of corpses lay frozen in place, weapons still in hand, eyes still open, now empty of purpose. For the living, it took time to understand what had happened. Men and women stood in the snow, weapons raised, waiting for the dead to rise again. They had learned not to trust hope, but the dead remained dead. The magic that bound them was gone, and with it, the terror that had haunted the world since the dawn of history. The long night had ended, but dawn did not feel like salvation. Winterfell was destroyed, its walls shattered, its people broken. Those who survived looked around and realized something far worse than fear had taken its place. Grief. Grief. Entire houses were gone. Ancient bloodlines erased in a single night. The Dothraki, once a sea of riders, were nearly wiped out. The Unsullied had stood their ground until there was no ground left to stand on. The North had survived, but barely. Funeral pyres burned for days. Kings and queens stood shoulder to shoulder with common soldiers, lighting flames for names that history would never remember. Jorah Mormont, Theon Greyjoy, Lyanna Mormont, Beric Dondarrion, Edison Tollett, thousands more with no songs, no statues, no stories. The war against death had demanded payment in blood, and it had been paid in full. Yet, even as the fires burned, the living made a familiar mistake. They believed the greatest enemy was gone. They believed the war was over. But the Night King had not been the end of conflict. He had merely been the pause. With the dead defeated, the old wars returned, sharper than ever. The living turned their eyes south. Cersei Lannister still sat on the Iron Throne. The capital had not suffered. Its people had slept through the long night. The North had bled, and the South had waited. Bitterness took root. Daenerys Targaryen, who had brought dragons and armies to save a world that would never love her, began to understand the truth. She was a hero to no one. Jon Snow, hailed as a savior, retreated into silence. He had faced death and lived, but victory had cost him certainty. He had united the living against the dead, yet could not unite the living with each other. And so the army marched again, not against monsters, against men. The death of the Night King did not heal the world. It exposed it. King's Landing would soon burn not from ice, but from fire. The Iron Throne would fall not to darkness, but to ambition. And the people would learn a cruel lesson. The greatest threat to the world had not been the Night King. He had been honest. He came openly. He did not lie. He did not scheme. He did not pretend. He wanted an end. Men wanted control. When the wars finally ended, when the ashes settled and the crowns were broken, the world was quieter but not safer. The wall remained ruined, the magic weakened, the old protections fading. The children of the forest were gone. The dragons were nearly extinct once more, and history began to rewrite itself. The Night King became a story again, a myth, a warning softened by time. Parents told children he was defeated forever. Maesters debated whether he had ever existed at all. The world forgot, but the truth lingered beneath the snow. The Night King had been created by fear, forged by desperation, unleashed by war. And as long as men fought endless wars, as long as fear outweighed wisdom, as long as the living chose power over peace, the conditions that birthed him still existed. The long night was over, but winter was never truly gone.